Good morning, everybody. This is Sherry at djsundry.blogspot.com. Welcome to day one of the Getting Cricky pre-hop week. This week we have, those of us who are hopping along on the pre-hop have chosen to use one cartridge all week long. If you've been following my blog, you know that I have also chosen to be part of this. Now this week I have chosen the Country Life cartridge. Part of the challenge of this was to choose a cartridge that we either hadn't used or hadn't used very often. And to my knowledge, up until this week of projects, I have only used this cartridge one time. So if you've been following my blog, you also are aware that I have been frantically trying to get about 40 Valentines cards made. And so I chose to go with very simple cards. And I made 3x3 cards. Now the cards I'm showing you today are going to be a little bit more complicated, but just a couple extra steps, and they're still very, very simple. So I have here, I'm going to make 4, and I have these pieces of red paper. Now this is some red paper from Provocraft, and I have cut it at 6 inches long by 3 inches wide, and I've scored it down the middle to form a 3x3 card. Now for these cards today, I am not going to be stamping on the inside. All of my sentiments will be on the outside. So let's get started. The other things I want to show you are the animals that I'm going to be using, and I've already put them on foam tape. Now most of these cards I've mass produced. I tried to make 3 or 4. Some cards I made a few more of so that I could get my 40 done. And so I have made a couple others of each of these 3, the sheep and the horse and the cow. This chicken is going to be a one-of-a-kind, and that's because the person I'm giving that for, I just wanted the chicken to be for her. So let's get started. If we start with the chicken, I use the page 43, the chicken on page 43, to do the hen, and actually she cuts in about 4 or 5 layers. So we have a yellow layer. I wanted to go white on white, but I needed something little to break it up, so I put some tan underneath her her wing here. And we've got the yellow and the red as a chicken would have. And then I inked around the edges with pumice stone. I cut her out at 2 inches. This is the sheep, and I also cut, he's from page 42, and this was probably one of the simplest figures because he was only 3 cuts. The black layer for his body, the white layer for his wool, and then the red bow tie. And I don't know if the camera picks it up well, but there are little swirly cuts in his wool as well. And I also inked around him with pumice stone, and I cut him at 2 inches. The horse is for some little boys on my list, and he actually took a little more time in thinking through. The black layer is the main layer, and then I've got this brown textured layer, and then another brown scrap in just slightly a different color to give it kind of a shadowing effect, and then yet just another brown color for his face with a star for his nose, and then some green for the grass that he's eating, and I cut him at 2 inches. And then last but not least is the little cow. Now this one I had to play with a little bit because a 2-inch cow was much too large for my 3x3 inch card, because from hay to tail he was pretty long and he would have gone off the edges of the card. So I moved down and cut him at 1.5 inches, and all of the various layers that go with him, and then also I inked around his white spot with the pumice stone. So let's get the cards going. I am using 2 sets of stamps today. I am going to be using the It's Valentine's set and several pieces and a few stamps from that, and then I'm also going to be using this other Valentine's set, also from K. Andrew Designs, and the name just totally slipped me. Give me just a second, I'll tell you what that was. The I Heart You set. And the I Heart You set has some, the reason it's called that is it's got the hearts on it. So I'm going to be using several of these in combination to come up with my Valentines. Now, most of my Valentines that I've made so far this year have been either pink or red in various shades with white on white. Today, most of the bases that I've used, I've chosen out of craft. Now, I did need a white base because for the horse it was too much. The brown was too much. So I inked around the edges of the craft using walnut stain distress ink, and around the white I inked around it using the pumice stone distress ink. So let's get started, and to start we're going to begin with our horse card. So I've already punched him up on foam tape, as I have all of these, and the inks I'm going to be using for this one is a Fired Brick distress ink. And I'm using the stamp from the I Heart You set that says I adore you. And I'm just going to stamp it up here in the corner. Make sure I don't get my head in the shot here. And we'll start right like that. And clean off my stamp. And then I have this heart roses wreath. And it reminded me of the wreath of roses that horses who win a horse race get. And so I thought, well, that would be kind of fun. And so I wanted to do that as a background. Instead of adding ribbon of any kind, I thought that would be kind of a fun addition to this card. So we're going to just kind of, not really center it, I want to put it in the corner. Now, if you've never used this Fisker stamp press, I highly recommend it. In fact, I even normally use it for my little stamps, if I am able. Just because I get such a nice, clean, even stamp with it. And I rarely have smudges with it, so I really like it. So we've got I Adore You and then the heart wreath. And then I'm just going to run some adhesive around my white. Now, with the exception of the red paper that I use for my card bases, all of the bases, or all of the papers that I used today were from my scrap stash. Well, the red, also the black bases for the, I think the cow I had to cut into a sheet, and I ended up using that black sheet for the horse too. And that's just some old red that some old black that I've had. And like I mentioned before, the red is from Provocraft, and the rest of them are just my scraps. Trying to use up as much as I can. So I've just kind of centered him over the heart, and there's the first card. So we'll set him aside, and we'll move right along to the next card. I think what I'm going to do next is my one-of-a-kind card, and that's with the chicken. Now, I have this nice big stamp press, and I've already set my stamps on it, and right where I want them to be, because I want to stamp them at the same time. This is one I really would have preferred to use my stamp press on. It's just so easy to smooth it down, but we'll just do this like this. These two stamps are actually from the It's Valentines set, and this is the first time I've pulled these particular two stamps out of the package. I've never stamped this image before, and this is my one-of-a-kind card. I'm going to just come down, so I'm probably off camera just a bit, but I do want to get it lined up. And in the corner, in the upper left-hand corner, I have smooches. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, I have XOXOXO. And again, this is using my Fired Brick Distress ink for the red. And we'll just set that aside. And then let's if you notice, you see my secrets. I told you I used my scraps, and this was actually something I had printed on the other side for another project, and I had not finished that, or I had ended up printing too many, so you'll never see it. So I just decided to use the back of it, so I wouldn't waste it. And this is where my little chicken goes. You see how quickly these are going together. Now I know that part of it is the fact that I've pre-cut everything, but cute little 3x3 smooches and hugs and kisses, and we'll set that one aside. So now we're going to move on to our next one. And this one that I'm going to do is my sheep. So for this one, I have chosen to use also from the It's Valentine's stamp set, the phrase Happy Valentines. So I'll ink that up and come up in the corner and just stamp it Happy Valentines. If I'm off the camera again, I apologize. And we'll just set that aside. I had so many of these cards to make, and I just have been so busy. I thought I've got to come up with a quick plan of action. And so I'm all of the cards, with the exception of the chicken, all of the cards that I'm making for this video are actually going to boys or teenage boys that I'm giving to the cards to. So I needed something a little less frilly and girly for this set of cards that I'm making today. Okay, so there we have Happy Valentines, and there's our third card. So for our fourth and final card, I pulled this piece of ribbon, and this is from some ribbon that I purchased at Target from their dollar spot, and it's a black spool. I've already used some of it, and this spool of ribbon just cost $1, and it had 6 different, or we'll see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ribbons on them, and each ribbon is only a few inches long. I mean, it's a total of 3 yards, so there's not a lot for each particular ribbon, but there is enough to do a few. I discovered that by cutting this 2 3/4 inches square, I could get 5 little pieces of ribbon and use out of one color on that. So the one I'm using for this one is My Heart Is Yours, and this is from the I Heart You stamp from Andrew Designs. And I'm just going to ink that up with my black Excelsior ink. And I have to be really careful with this particular stamp block that I'm using on this one, because it's really easy to rock this set of stamps. And Crystal does such high quality stamps, but I don't want to mess up the images by rocking the stamp. So I thought I would be very careful because it's so easy. And again, I just used the black, and it's just kind of subtle, but it says My Heart Is Yours. And then I'm going to take my ATG, and I'm going to actually just run a line of adhesive right onto the ribbon. Now, what I've discovered with doing this is it is somewhat difficult that for the ribbon to not take on kind of a wave form when you do that, and so be really careful. Try to keep it taut enough to keep it straight, because you don't want a wavy line. And then it just tucks around to the back, and again I'm going, you see, another on the other side is something that I had printed. And then my last little red card here. Get it all set up. These are super simple, and when you're looking to mass produce some cards, super simple is just what, at least with my schedule right now, that's just what I need. So here's my fourth and final card for the day. So today we've started out by doing Valentines using the Country Life Cricut cartridge and the Valentines set from Andrew Designs, both the I Heart You and the It's Valentine's set. So be sure and check out the links if you're interested in purchasing these sets. Remember that Crystal donates a portion of each of the proceeds of her stamps to charity, and so you're helping someone else out when you're helping as you're getting these great stamps. So thanks for watching, and come back tomorrow to see what we make on the Getting Cricky pre-hop challenge week for each of us to use one cartridge for all of our projects. Have a great day.